Hey, John.
Angie.
So you and I have been having some really interesting conversations.
Oh, we have.
Right? Less about actual coaching and more
Mm.
about the business of coaching, right? Good
Mhm. Yeah.
do's and don'ts, I think, is what it really came down to, right?
Yeah, it interestingly has reflected some conversations I've been having elsewhere as well. So
Mm.
very interesting that that should come up for us too. Welcome to the Coaching Clinic with John and Angie.
The show for professional coaches who want to develop their skills and grow their business.
Follow the show on your favorite podcast app.
And join us every Wednesday for new episodes. I think it's interesting for me when I wanted to begin and start a business, I had this desire, and I want to say this appropriately. It was almost if I was opening a storefront, a brick and mortar, it would have furniture and details and curtains. And so, how did that translate to a business that I wasn't structuring that way? I was going to be doing it from home and in my office. And I had this desire to have all of the things, meaning, oh, I
Mm.
need an admin or somebody to answer the phones, and I need somebody to handle all of my marketing. And so my
Right.
intention was what I believed to be the right way to start a business. And how do you think that worked out?
Maybe better than my version of that. Um, I before to you and to our audience as well on previous episodes that I did not have much of a clue what I was doing when I started out as a coach. I think many coaches were in that position of having come from a professional background where you've been an employee for a company to then come to working for yourself, either completely for yourself or as a contractor or some sort of combination. Things look very different. Things look very different when you are self-employed, when you're responsible for it all. And it doesn't, well, maybe now it does, but it didn't come with a handbook back then. You really did have to try and figure it out for yourself. And it was very hard. It was hard to find the people who, because there weren't so many coaches around there, especially there weren't so many business coaches, for sure. It was
Right.
harder to find the people who could give you the professional guidance. If you were lucky, you could probably find a business mentor, and maybe if you're well connected,
Yeah.
that would all work out. But for many of us, myself included, it was like trying to find the light switch with a blindfold on.
Yeah, and so that's the funny part is that you're right. My point about how I envisioned starting a business or having a business, not even just starting, like, what did I want it to look like? I didn't have a clue. I had nothing to compare it to. My
Right.
experience at that time was vastly different than today. And I thought I knew, but I mean, something you said, there wasn't a handbook. Now everybody in their families really are like, here's your booklet, here's your step-by-step process on how to become a
Here's
successful
your
coach.
7 figures in 24 hours as a coach.
Oh my gosh, I just saw something the other day from a pretty well-known coach actually. That was like 100, there was an M in there and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And learning to do the process in 90 days. And it's here's the thing. I am a believer that there is a roadmap, right? And John and I
Mhm.
literally, it wouldn't be the do's, it would be the don'ts, right? Just follow the don'ts. If you can do that. But the thing is, that list continues to grow. And so, for example, things I didn't know. Number one, I knew nothing. That's number one. I knew nothing. And I think anybody who starts any business, of course, you come into it green, right? Even if you want to open up a barber shop, there's things that you have to do. And until you do it, you don't know. I was lucky, I guess, at the local college. They had this program for new business owners, and they had professionals that would help you set up an LLC or your corporation, whatever you chose, but nobody would, "Oh, well, I can't tell you how to do that. You need to go talk to your CPA." So went and talked to the CPA and said, "Well, what should I do?" "Well, you should do this, but you should also go talk to an attorney to draw up a and honestly, by that time, I wanted to run away. My hair was on fire. I was like, I just want to be a coach. Now, you and I on the show, we've
Yeah.
talked about the business of coaching. right? What should you spend money on? What should you not spend money on? But I think interestingly that we don't know what's really going to hit for people. And what do I mean by that? We don't know that maybe my marketing didn't work for it initially. Did yours?
No, gosh, no, I blew tons of money on stuff that did nothing,
Yeah. So if you run out of money,
literally.
do you stop coaching? It's really, I believe there always needs to be a strategy behind it. If this
Yeah,
doesn't work, and I don't mean going into some different field. If you're truly passionate, figure those things out. But you and I have experienced we've talked about multiple companies that we know of that were great companies that are now not solopreneurs, what we've been talking about, but even low to mid-size companies that are air quote closing their doors. Now, we may never know exactly why, but even when you are at cruising altitude, anything can happen. Maybe it's that we need to be just as strategic once we are off the ground as we are in the beginning, as cautious. Do we blow caution to the wind once we become something? And I don't mean somebody where we're just this big name. I mean, we start to actually make income on a consistent basis. And you said something earlier, which is one of my favorites, willy nilly, right? It doesn't mean that we just all of a sudden go all willy nilly in our business.
yeah. I think I said loosey goosey, but it's the same thing,
Oh,
right?
maybe you're right.
Um,
I apologize. Good thing everybody
it
else
means the
wasn't
same
there to
thing.
hear.
Yeah,
See,
thankfully, there's no recording of this to check. But here's the thing, it's very easy to get focused on the wrong things. I think at least now there are clearer roadmaps for people, right? There are more people out there saying, "What does success look like for you?" Which, I didn't consider that when I first started a coaching business. I just thought, all right, you start, you build up clients, and you figure it out from there. It would have been helpful to have some sense of, do I want a lifestyle business that's just going to be like coaching big, have this many clients, keep it limited, and have freedom to do other stuff, or
mm,
maybe just bum around in the rest of my time? Or do I want something that's a bit more intense, build it up, have other people coming in, bring on more coaches, make it a bigger thing?
yeah,
I
yeah.
have no clue, no clue. And even if I had wanted something bigger, I probably wouldn't have allowed myself to think about it very much, simply because where do you even start? And as you say, so like you go, oh, go and speak to this person. Then they say, go and speak to that person. And before you know it, it's like, oh my goodness, enough. Why can't this just be simple and straightforward? Because you've never really had to
Yeah.
deal with stuff before, or face these challenges of everything takes so much longer than you think it ever will. And that's
Mm.
very discouraging.
Yeah, I think it can dissuade us. And I think something you said is important to recognize. If you are at the beginning, right? If you're listening and you're like, well, I'm a newer coach, or I'm thinking about transitioning from my corporate lifestyle, my corporate job into being a coach or a consultant. We have talked about you need to understand your finances. That's very important. And that probably will dictate. Some people I know, actually, I know two people that actually took out business loans to really, even though they had money, they didn't want to use their own money. And they went, that gave them some more flexibility in the beginning to maybe hire some people to do things like John and I have talked about. I am not a marketer. I should never be marketing myself. I am not great at it. I don't have any real interest in it. So maybe you're able to do that. But I think the beginning is, do you have the vision that you actually want a business with more than being a solopreneur? Do you want this to be where you have other coaches? And how many coaches are you anticipating? Do you want to run and manage a business? Do you want an entire payroll of admin, sales, marketing? Do you want that?
Yeah. I think as a self-employed coach, I think there is an order to things that generally has to be
Agree.
followed. You do pretty much have to build up whatever one-to-one practice you want first.
Yep.
It's harder to start with group and things like that because you're not really established yet. So
Yeah.
you build up your one-to-one practice. But when that's doing well, then there's a time to start introducing group, maybe even converting your one-to-one stuff as much as you can into groups. And then that's a time where you can then, when that's going well, you can start thinking about scaling beyond that. What else do you
Yeah.
want? Which one? How big do you want to
Hmm.
go? Having that vision at the start is fine, but you still have to go through a level of
Absolutely.
process. No, I'm sure there are outliers who are going to say, no, I just went straight into this and made this happen and great. They are outliers. It's few and far between. They the exception rather than the rule. For most of us, there is a natural progression to building up your coaching business. But I think I would still have benefited myself from having a much clearer vision earlier on about how I wanted it to look. How much money did I want to be making? How much would I need to be charging my clients in order to be hitting that for the kind of work? Who do I want to be niching towards? Do they
Yeah.
can they afford to pay for me? All that stuff is like, you don't necessarily think about it. You go and do your coach training, hopefully you've done your coach training, and then you come out and think, right, I'm ready to coach everybody. And
Hey.
then you start to realize that doesn't really work either. It's too hit and miss. You have to start figuring things out. I do think it's easier in some ways now, apart from what you said, that there are just so many people out there. The harder part now is finding the people who are trustworthy or reliable to help you get the sort of results that you want to get, but they are out there.
You know what's so funny? I'm obviously, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and I don't know, I guess from old postings and stuff, I see, oh, somebody posted this, you might be interested. And there are just, and this is amazing to me, companies, coaching companies that are like, this is the greatest opportunity for you to be autonomous and you must be driven and all of these things. And they're not even, some of them aren't even offering a product. They want you to come and work for them and they want you to go find the clients and then they want you to share the profits with them because you're working under their umbrella. If this is successful, if you hear this and you are one of those companies, I want to speak to you. I would love to know how that's actually working. And I listen, somebody might come at me for this and probably I don't care, but really, that concept is working because it's not just one. I've probably come across in the last year between 5 and 10 of them where it's this is the great, and they have these really dazzling names. I'm making this up, and this is a real company. I apologize, but you first coaching or something like that, and you're like, as a coach, you're drawn to, oh, what are they doing and what are they offering? Right? As a coach, you need to know what other companies are offering to see where you fit into the world of coaching. And when I hear this, I'm like,
I
I'm
I
baffled. Like, this works.
I
I need to change this.
I'm just gonna go and grab my soapbox so I can stand on it because I have something to say.
Oh my, we love
And
John. We love this.
this won't be the first time that I've said this to you, but it probably has been a long time since this has come up. But since there are coaching companies now, and undoubtedly some coaches think, oh yeah, I'll go and work for a coaching company. That's fine. This may be enough for you. And it's all a lot of the pressure's off. Just show up, do your coaching, collect your bill for your money, whatever, and get paid. Great. That's nice and simple, nice and easy. Work from home, manage it into your life, whatever. So you might start looking for coaching companies other than some of the bigger ones. And you will find those places, you'll find some of those places on LinkedIn, for example, among other places. But as you say, many of them are franchise operations that aren't they listed as jobs, but they're franchise operations. They're not actually offering you a job. They're offering you an opportunity to buy into their franchise. And as you say,
Sure.
you still have to go out and find the clients and build
Yeah.
up the business.
Yeah.
That doesn't change. They may have plans and structures for doing that. Great if they do. It's not that far off from being a multi-level marketing company though, is it
Not
really?
far.
And if there's some sort of profit share within that or some sort of pyramid of commissions that go up that, then it is essentially a form of network marketing for coaching. And I think that's stay well away. Network marketing is not something I would generally recommend people to get into in the first place.
I
So
would say this right here's the line of delineation for me. If you are not providing me the clients and saying, here's our concept, our process, our program, go do it.
yeah.
And you're on the other side of the fence and you're saying, here's our process even. Now go sell it and coach it and show your entrepreneurial spirit. You're right. I have zero interest in building up another business for somebody when I should be doing that for myself. Then why would I do? But the question becomes this: why would I do that for you? I don't understand.
But
Why
look,
would I? Why,
that
what is
there
the
are
actual benefit?
I must pedal back a little bit because there are some good coach franchises out there that some people have done very well with. The one that springs to mind for me is Action Coach. I don't know if you have that where you are, but I think they are fairly international. They're business coaching. And you do, to some degree, have, I guess, what people have with things like ICF or EMC
Yeah.
certification
Hmm.
of a little bit of assurance of that there's a quality control that goes into that as well. There's an association and a level of trust in that brand that they've had to establish over the years. But it is a franchise nonetheless, and it's not a job. So I do get a little bit annoyed when some of these places, and I know Action Coach, as far as I know, don't do this, but there are others who do. They advertise these things as jobs, and they are not jobs. And I think that how is that a good start to any relationship when
Sure.
you've been catfished before you even
Yeah.
start?
Yeah. But I
It's
think a lot of
not
people are,
good.
I've actually had people I know that they listen to our show and I know them just from a professional space. And I've had people say, "Hey, Angie, you've been a coach for a while. I was looking into XYZ and it sounds really comprehensive. This might be the business in a box that I've been looking for." So, to your point, John, I do think if it's something that you can take and then apply within your business, that structures it and lays out some type of a growth plan or a map, I don't think there's anything wrong with that because it's more than what you and I had. Anything has to be better, I think, than what we did. But you're right. There is that other side to it where somebody's like, oh, just go out and promote us and you'll be, yes, it does, I guess. Right. I didn't think of it that way as a multi level marketing concept, but, and that is different. There's differentiators between that and owning a franchise, right? When you own a franchise, obviously you're partaking in and you're sharing your profits. I mean, that you're doing that. So that's fine if that's what you choose. But how these other
Sure.
jobs, these posts come up and try to make it sound like they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. I know that I'm thinking of three different people that I think are very intelligent, but they don't have a lot of business savvy, and that's okay, right? Because they haven't never owned a business, asking me about, what do you think of this? And I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. Run, right? Is that's what I think, right? What are you looking for? And I do think that people are looking for the business in the box concept. I will buy this from you. Please just give it to me, right? How do I do
I,
this?
this is part of what makes multi-level marketing companies attractive. But look, as I said, there are some good franchises out there that
Yeah.
you'd probably do well to be associated with. And anything in life, you do have to do a bit of homework on this and make sure it's legit. But MLMs and the likes, the only people who ever really make money with them are the people who start them up or people who really are gifted salespeople before they even
Sure.
go into it and they properly treat it a full-time business. So this idea that you can buy into a business and it's just, oh, just do it do a few hours a day when you got do it between picking up the kids and making their dinners. I'm sorry, you are never going to have any business with that. These sorts of promises of, oh, it's so easy, it is absolutely misleading. And same with any it's the same with any business. Whether you do this by
Yeah.
yourself or whether you do a business in a box thing, you still have to do all of the same things to make that business grow.
Right.
Why not? I say, why not do that all under your own power and steam? Because unless you need
Absolutely.
the association of somebody else's name as for recognition and credibility, do it under your own power, niche yourself, do all that stuff, get the coaching and guidance that helps coaches to do this sort of thing. You will be doing all the same things anyway, but it will be you and it will be how you want it. You start off that way
Yes.
rather than getting 5 years into it thinking, I think it's time I did my own thing.
And listen, and maybe that is part of the growth for some people at times. We all have
Yeah.
different reasons for you and I met at a company. right? That's where we met originally. So it does happen that sometimes we're, oh, I want to segue. This looks a great way. Well, what better way to learn it than to actually do it? And that's fine. But it's also, I mean, going back to your what you said in the very beginning of there's an order to things. And I think part of that, and the reason, one of the best reasons for having the order is, I mean, some things happen simultaneously. It's not step one, step two. It might be 2A, 3B, whatever. But that's also to not get ahead of yourself. And it's to keep you in alignment. It's to keep you focused on what is the real priority. And you and I have both experienced companies over the years that have grown too quickly. I had a business actually, now that I'm thinking about it out loud, many, many, many years ago, where I had a very short term vision. And this is me now post this experience. I didn't know that at the time. And I had people offering, people that I knew very well, two people were, hey, let me help you take your business to the next level. And they were talking buying vehicles and all of the, and I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. No, thank you. I was not interested. I couldn't even today tell you exactly why, but it scared the bejesus out of me. And they both said to me, well, what are you going to do? How are you going to scale? They were both already very different businesses, by the way, but business owners. And guess what? I probably should have listened because I didn't know how to scale. And my business grew to levels where what we talked about in our last set, I could not personally do any more work. I was already limited. So
Yeah.
not that we want to focus on day one. Well, geez, how am I going to scale my business? That's not the problem to start with.
N-
But your
No.
vision could help if you do envision yourself as having maybe, oh, I'd love to have a handful of coaches working for me, something manageable. I'm not looking to be, for example, a Tony Robbins who's got multitudes of businesses and multitudes of companies and all of them. He doesn't manage them anymore, right? We're not talking that scale. But I mean, if you are that person that actually wants to have that big name and brand, I'd love to hear that too, right? How do you
Yeah.
do that? And how do you stay safe
Yeah.
and not overextend yourself?
And there's everything in between as well, right? Is important to have a sense of where you want to go so that you can start to look at what happens next. But one of the danger points that I've seen over recent years, and maybe a bit less so now, maybe a bit less
Mhm.
post COVID, but certainly before then, it was happening a lot. Is these startups coming along and running at 100 miles an hour, and some of them were making it over the line. Some of vast majority of them weren't. They
Mhm.
were crashing and burning really quick. For example, you're saying they were trying to scale way too quickly
Yeah, yeah,
and trying to dominate the market from startup. And that is tough. And again, this is the outliers. You see the success story. We have a success bias in every industry, but definitely in coaching. The outliers are the ones that you'll hear the stories of, and you'll be inspired by. I could do that. I had a
sure.
sales position. I had a sales position with a company selling podcast growth training.
Mhm.
They're still around, but the guy who was running that, super nice guy, he tried to scale too quickly. And part of the reason for that was he was hanging around with all these sort of what you call marketing bros, or these Hormozy types. They're all in the sort of going to church to pray to Alex Hormozy and whoever at the weekend. But it was very much that. So there was all these group of particular marketing bros. They'd often go to the same events, and I guess they're all challenging each other to some degree, or feeling challenged because some people are way ahead of them and some people are not. But they're looking at the people who are way ahead and thinking, I want to be like that. And it's like, well, let's get in the race and race. And in many cases, in this particular case, it was too much too soon. And so it ended up with one particular day, some years back, of early in January, getting on a team call, and pretty much all of us were let go because he didn't have any other option. But to scale the
Mhm.
business, his option was to scale the business back to the essentials, which was him and one other person. And he's since built up in a manageable, in a sustainable way since then. But that
Learned
is
his
a
lesson.
painful that is a painful lesson to
Yeah.
learn. I'm so glad that he's survived that and coming back strong and doing well because he's a really good guy. But my goodness, how difficult that was for him, how upsetting to have to let go of a team of people who he cared about and having to admit that it was his mistakes that had caused all of this. But that's often how it goes. We don't always know how to build or grow our businesses, scale them in ways that are manageable and sustainable. We sometimes think we can just
Yeah.
go full out, scale it up, and everything will just fall into place, and that rarely happens.
You know what's so funny? So I had a conversation with somebody last week, and this fits in perfectly, I think, is that even success, even if your company is growing consistently by percentages every single year, that doesn't mean that just because you can or have the money that you should spend it. We shouldn't go looking for ways to spend money unless there's a strategy of some behind it. I mean, I actually sat in a meeting with somebody who had tons of boxes behind them. And I was like, hey, what's all that? That's new and no swag. And I go, okay, I get it. I get it. I'm not saying that companies shouldn't produce some of that, but I still think there needs to be strategy behind that. Just because you have it doesn't mean you should spend it. The people I know that have the most, or companies I think that retain the more of their profits, spend less. And it's funny because their employees might say, well, geez, I don't know, understand why there's a pay freeze right now or a hiring freeze if we're doing so well. Well, because they want to maintain that, right? They're not going to be loosey goosey, willy nilly spending money because why? Unless it's again, unless there's a next level that requires a push or a stretch, just because you have it doesn't mean you need to spend it. Seriously.
I think, I mean, this has maybe come up in coaching conversations for us before, but I think there are very few coaching companies who actually pay coaches what they're worth, if any
Oh,
at all, maybe a
yeah.
few places. And this is part of the reason why, because
Yes.
you are ultimately a cost. You're a cost to the business once they bring you in. But
Yeah.
I think that is the wrong way to look at it. And I do think if you actually invested your money into your people, given them salaries that make them want to stick around, make it a good place to be that, where they feel they have a say and they, feel they have maybe not autonomy. You can't necessarily do that, but they feel valued and feel part of it,
Yeah.
and they feel respected for their time
Mhm.
with at least a payment that shows that even if you can't give them what they might be earning by themselves, because obviously there's a lot of costs involved, then they're going to want to stay with that. They're gonna wanna stick around for it. But there are so few places that actually do it. And this is why one of the reasons why many coaches do really want to just work for themselves. So even in Better Up, even if you're sort of in the top levels of Better Up, you can do well, but you can still do better by yourself. But you have to go and find the clients. So then you've got all the costs and effort of all of that. You can
All
still
of the
make more money.
costs. Yeah.
You have
Right.
all
Which
the
you and I
costs
were
and all the
talking about.
responsibility. Yeah, but I don't understand that. I don't think people care so much about merch. By all means, have some of it if it's a reasonable cost in your business, and nice to have some things that you can give away, but keep it on the not you don't want cheap and tacky, but keep it affordable, keep it on something manageable. But you're right. I think people just sort of think, oh, there's all this money and let's do this, but they're not putting it into the right places. And I
Mhm.
think there is not this isn't really a conversation for us, but there is definitely an issue around the disparity between CEOs in many companies now earning 100 times more than the people at the lowest levels of the business. And it's like, well, that's where all the money is going. And then there's layoffs and stuff. And as you say, that's to keep the people at the top comfy, not the people who are sort of doing the essential work of the day-to-day running of the business. Different conversation, but these are to some degree still relevant in your coaching model, especially if you're looking to build up a business that is like, yeah, have a business that bring people in, but respect them, make it worth the while, and create an environment that you would want to work in. And if you want it to last, make sure they want to stay. But yeah, you still have to watch the money. You still have to make sure that you're being sensible
It all comes
with
down
what
to
you're bringing into your
resources.
business.
Yeah.
Gosh.
time, money. How much do you have to bring to the table? It's not just how much money do you have, it's all other resources, including and especially just as important, maybe not especially, but your time. How much time do you have to be the coach and the advisor and all of the things? And that just comes down to maybe creating that roadmap for yourself, creating a real business plan, which if you have no business experience, John and I have said, go find somebody who does and have that conversation for sure.
I mean, the conversation I was having with a coaching friend just this morning was about actually tax efficiency with the business. The cost of being self-employed, which we had a bit of a chat about as well, just keeps going up and up. There's a cost attached to that. At some point, I'm going to have to start looking into setting up a business to save myself money, but I have to look at the best way of doing that, setting up a limited company and making that shift potentially, because it's going to be so much better for me financially to do that. And not necessarily that I want to build up to having this huge business with those people working for me. I don't
Yeah.
think that's really
Yeah.
in the schema for me. But I do not want to be paying. I do not want to be getting fully whacked for tax when I don't need to. When there are mechanisms and methodologies that will allow me to, I'll still pay my tax because I think it's important to do that. But I don't need to be getting hammered for it. And that's the alternative, which is not very
Well, I think
attractive.
that's why, yes, you need to go talk to somebody who has the expertise in those spaces. And even though I felt I was going on a wild goose chase way back in the beginning, I realize now how valuable that actually was to go and do it the right way, gain the information, etc.
I did business studies at school. There's no way that being able to do a profit and loss chart actually prepared me for having a business. So I don't think I
Well,
don't
there's
think
honesty for you.
and I don't really think MBAs, as much as they can be valued, I don't think they necessarily give people everything. I think that people can be very successful without them. So it shouldn't be
Yes.
the thing that you have to look at. But getting some mentorship and getting the right guidance, I think, is one of the critical elements for having a
Yeah.
successful business that will last the distance as well, and
Yeah.
encourage you to do what we were doing, exactly what we do in this situation. Get the advice that you need from people who know what they're talking about.
Agreed. Starting with John and Angie.
Look, who knows what we'll be talking about next time. But if this has been valuable to you, make sure you're subscribed, and we'll see you again soon.
Do you have a question for the coaching clinic?
Reach out on LinkedIn to connect with Angie and John.
Leave us a voicemail or video message and we will feature you on the show.
You can also leave up to 90-second voicemail for free on www.speakpipe.com/the Coaching Clinic podcast.
We'd love to hear from you.
See you next time.
Bye for now.